Hello and welcome to Upon Further Review, episode 10, as we head towards the end of the season and the first round of the playoffs here in the next couple weeks. But we have some business to settle here this week as we start looking ahead to week 9 in the Summit Athletic Conference, the final week of the season, as is for everyone around the Northeast Indiana area. Tonight, we're going to have Grant Moser on from South Adams High School. We'll talk a little bit about their Woodland game and because that was actually a pretty darn good ball game, 38-32 Woodland. And I'm interesting to hear his impressions of Woodland because they have been a team that's been on a build, so to speak, over the last couple of years under Coach Smith. And then in our second segment, we're going to bring in Jim Shevlin, our pregame host on Friday nights on the PSM pregame show, as well as Brett Rump, the voice of 1380 in Northeast Indiana sports, as we talk a little bit of a roundtable setup looking at this past season thus far. Alongside Eric Dukevich, I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. Welcome once again, Eric. Can't say enough about the season thus far, but it's gone awful quick.
I know it's crazy to believe that, this past Sunday we had the sectional draw. We might get into that a little bit later on as well. And now we're at the final week of the regular season. And it's really interesting where some conferences, the champions have been crowned. There's still some teams that have a chance to get a slice of the pie. But ultimately, here we are at the end of the regular season and a lot of great football to be played yet. Because really, when you talk about the playoffs, you have a 9-week regular season, and then if you go through state, it's another 6 weeks. So there's a potential for a lot of teams to play a lot of football through the month of November coming up, and obviously this month of October as well.
And I will say this, at this time of the year, there are a lot of bumps and bruises that kids are playing with and fighting through. And you can't really say there's a quote unquote totally healthy team. There's always the bumps and bruises. And now it's the fight to survive as we get into the playoffs. Winner stays up, loser goes home. But, we were down at Huntington North this past week at Friday night to take in their new facility. What a beautiful facility that was. Former assistant of mine at Manchester, Jeremy Markham's the athletic director there. Okay. And just a beautiful, beautiful setup. Unfortunately for the Vikings, they were just overpowered by a very good Norwell Knights team, a team that we all think can make a potential run. You alluded to the sectional, the drawings that was this afternoon and this past Sunday. And we'll talk a little bit about that maybe. But really, Norwell controlled that ball game from start to finish.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, a lot of that was kind of expected going in there. But I think from the Huntington North perspective, for them, a program that continues to build brand new facilities, we kind of talked about a little bit, the ability for them to have that will help. And a lot of, especially with their injuries that Coach Prescott talked about with Brett and throughout the week is, for Huntington North, a lot of guys got a lot of playing time and will get a lot of playing time. And that's only beneficial to those programs that are taking their lumps, going through the rebuilding process. And ultimately, another 3 or 4 years down the line, we might see a Huntington North that is, able to do some of the things that Norwell's doing now. East Noble's been able to do in the NE8. Leo's been able to. So, and even a team like Belmont that has not won in quite some time, they used to, be towards the top of the league. Yeah. So that's what's fun about high school football and the kind of the teams that you get in and out of it. And that's been a fun part of what we've been able to see all season. And Huntington North was a great place with their brand new facility. You could look down US 24 and almost see back all the way down to Fort Wayne again. It was pretty awesome sight out there and a great crowd and a lot of fun. And we appreciate all the hospitality from the Vikings staff and administration there as well.
Yeah, they did a great job hosting us this past week, as every school throughout the 9 weeks of the season has been gracious host to all of us associated with 1380 The Fan 100.9 FM. Some things work out where we can get to a stadium. Some things don't just because of logistics. But let's bring in Coach Moser here from South Adams High School, celebrating a hard-fought win against a Woodland team that really kind of took you down to the wire, Coach.
Yeah, thanks for having me. First off, did I hear you say it's going to be the same show as Shevlin and Rump, huh? I finally made it. Up on the show. There we go. Yeah, a much improved Woodland team from the last couple of years. Coach Smith doing things the right way. Great sophomore running back and Fleek, and then Snyder, their quarterback. They ran all over us. I think they have 360 rushing yards against us. We started off kind of hot. We were up 16-2 pretty quick. We were up 14 points at halftime. And then third quarter, we kind of stalled quite a bit. But then the last drive of the game, Mav Somerset kind of put us on his back and put together like a 65-yard drive and punched it in with a minute left. So our O-line played great. We're starting 3 sophomores on the O-line, but our guys were gritty at the end there when they needed to be, and that's one of the first close game we've had in a while here since Heritage, so it was a big win for us.
It was a pretty balanced night when you look at it from both teams. Almost identical times of possession. They end up having 42 rushing attempts. You alluded to the 300 yards. Owen Warner, 276 yards passing, 3 touchdowns on the night. But here's the stat that caught my eye. Both teams were about 50% on third downs. And the differential was they were 1 for 3 on fourth down. So you stopped them a couple times and got the ball back. And then of course you went for it one time and got it. So you can't say enough about your quarterback and his growth through the season. Like I said, he was 19 of 34 for 276 on Friday night.
Man, he's really coming to his own. Owen Warner, a kid that put so much time in the offseason, trains up attraction in the spring and summer. He's a 3-sport athlete. But he's got so much pocket presence, composure. He's a kid that was kind of forced into in the starting role last year, the sophomore, and our starter Aiden Warner went down with a broken foot. This year, though, he's got 1,800 yards already, which is third all-time in South Adams history. He's already second all-time in our history, career passing behind James Arnold. Now he's about 5,000 yards behind James still.
Yeah.
But he does things the right way, coachable kid, and now he's starting to realize that he's a good runner too. So when you put those things together and we can run some of the option stuff we like to do along with our passing game, it makes us a lot more dangerous with our West Coast offense. But I love to sling it around, man. I love to play fast, and we have good athletes out there, and it makes it easier as a past O lineman when you can get the ball out quick and do the passing game well. It's so much easier for a lineman to be part of your offense. Like I said, we have 3 sophomore linemen, and that's kind of our weakness right now, which our guys know. So I think when we get the ball out quick, that helps us out a little bit.
Yeah, when you talk about a running back that you guys have, I think he's on his 8th year there. I'm not sure. It's Somerset Maverick. What a name. I love the name. But he had 26 for 123, couple touchdowns. He's been a phenomenal player for you guys in an offense that doesn't necessarily feature a tailback. And what I mean by that, the traditional I formation, hand it off. But here's a kid that if you can get into space, get the ball to him quickly, he does a lot of great things when he's got the ball in his hands because has a very good vision.
Yeah, absolutely. His brother Christian was the 2019-2020 running backs. Probably why the name sounds so familiar.
Yeah, I was going to say it's like the Tipmans up here in Fort Wayne.
Right. Exactly. There's a 6th grade one's probably gonna be the best one when it comes to.
Oh wow.
So we like that name around here in Burn. Obviously, it's a household name. But yeah, he's our guy. He makes our motor go both sides of the ball. He's our middle linebacker as well. Second on the team in tackles. I think Friday night he had, like I said, 123 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. Well, there it is right there. But he had a screen pass that he caught and took 65 yards to the house, and then 10 tackles on defense. So he's one of our captains, along with Owen right there. Owen Warner and Brady Beal are 3 captains of our team. But Mav is the guy that makes us tick. He's Michael Moser, the AC coach, said he's the best blitzer he's seen maybe ever. He can time his blitz so well, and he's so hard to pick up from offensive linemen. But he's been huge for us both sides of the ball. And like you said, we're a pass first team. We like to chuck it around and go fast, but we have to run the ball sometimes. If you're going to win games, you have to be able to run the ball when you need to. If it's 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, I'm going to run the ball, and Maverick's that guy that's going to make that happen. So he's been huge for us. Like he says, there are 15 touchdowns on the year, 14 rushing touchdowns. Just a guy who does things, again, works his butt off, man. He works so hard and does things the right way. So those 3 guys right there, those are kind of the focal points we have right now, and we go as they go here in the sectional.
Sure. Coach, you've been able to come in and kind of turn this program around and really get South Adams to a point of contention for ACAC titles, sectional titles. You guys went down to state a couple years back, and talk about the building process that you've been able to have at South Adams and really the support and the kids coming through the team that you have now, where they've come and really how that will help your program long term at South Adams.
Yeah, we've had a good couple of years, and that's very much in spite of me. Like I'm trying to stay out of the way for the most part. But the keys I would say to that, well, first off, we had an obviously very, very talented group in 2020. That senior group with James Arnold and Somerset and Nick Miller. I think we have 6 of those guys playing college football right now between St. Francis, Marion, and Taylor. But incredible players there. But along with that, incredible families, good parents that would back me up no matter what, and they're always going to just kind of stay out of the way. Let me do my thing, which is awesome from parents. You don't always have that at high schools, I know. And then also we have my entire staff is South Adams grad. South Adams alumni that played either for me or I played for a couple of them even, honestly. But guys who just love South Adams football, love the community, and we have incredible community support. Friday night in Burns, special place to be when the crowd's so loud, huge student section, great band, and also incredible administration. So kids are bought in right now. Kids are having fun. Winning's fun. Obviously, we've won 3 straight sectionals, but we haven't been in sectional with AC yet. So we know all roads go through Adams Central. Right now, they're probably the favorite in 1A North once again. But again, this is just it's been a fun 8 years, man. And every year it gets more and more fun as I learn things and try to make less mistakes myself, but I still always find a way to get 10 guys on punt team somehow every game, I feel like. But it's just a great coaching staff to be around, great community part of. Like I said, I'm from South Adams. I grew up playing football at South Adams and just I love everything about Starfire football.
Sure. You mentioned it too. All roads have kind of gone through AC for the ACAC title. Woodland has been there for years. This conference, to have 2 years in a row for the Allen County Athletic Conference to be represented by 2 Adams County schools down at the state finals. I mean, talk about this conference, the style of football that is played on Friday nights, and why that is so benefit to go through the conference schedule and help you guys in the postseason runs.
Yeah, you mentioned right there. We were down the state in 2020, Adams Central last year, and Woodland was down there in 2017. So we have 3 teams that were down the state finals in the last 5 years. So it's a tough conference, and I love it being a 1A school playing against those bigger schools. Heritage and Woodland, 3A schools. Jay County, a 4A school. Adams Central plays like a 4A school. Bluffton's going to be a 3A school soon with their enrollment keeps increasing. It's just fun to be part of. You go through you feel battle tested come sectional, especially when, like I said, we're 1A. Join some of those smaller schools. We've been playing. I mean, my line is small. Like I said, I have 3 sophomores, and all 3 sophomores are under 200 pounds. I think we have 1 lineman right now that's over 200 pounds out of all 5 of our starting linemen. So we've been outmatched, outsized all year long. You get into 1A football and kind of tends to come back and you see guys more your size. So and that's I love being a part of the ACAC. And it's got such a rich tradition. Great coaches. I played for Kirk Sorg, who's been with South Adams for 23 years. You look back at Rick Minnick from Adams Central, Bobby Yeager of Heritage, obviously Etzler from Woodland. Some historic coaches. And now we're starting to see that now with guys with longer tenure now, with Kolgman back at Heritage, an alumni that will be there for a long time. Kunkel's at Bluffton doing great things. Michael back at Adams Central, obviously. So it's kind of fun to start having those rivalries take place and get to know these coaches pretty well. We have a group text that we talk quite a bit about different things. So we have great camaraderie in the ACAC among coaches.
Sure. Go ahead, Shannon.
Yeah. One thing that I think that, as we get into the playoffs here, experience in it is, I think, important, having the team that's been there and learned how to go through and get into the postseason. But how do you handle not just that component, but, a week 9 game that, kids are kind of looking ahead and coaches can peek ahead too, because when the grand scheme of things, it's not that important. The importance of the game is still there, but not to the extent that the following week is, especially with who you drew.
Yeah. And I mean, we're not playing for a conference title right now with 2 losses in the conference. It's easy, even as a coach, like you said, to kind of peek forward and say, well, now who we draw on? Are we going to get to round 2 and play Adams Central inevitably? Is that what's going to happen if we get through Fremont? But this is a big week where we'll focus on us. We got to get better. Obviously, we had a lot of mistakes against Woodland. Our defense, our run defense especially, has to get better. So it's a week where I think we focus on us. We got to get healed up. We got beat up pretty bad Friday. Our leading tackler Connor Fear has a pretty bad bone bruise in his foot, so we have to get him healed. Clayton Troush, our starting guard, tore something in his shoulder. Yeah, Luke Bauman, our center, has an ankle injury, so it's a week where we can hopefully get healthy and focus on ourselves and make ourselves better with especially our run defense and taking care of the ball offensively.
And
Coach,
and then
go
ahead, dude.
I was just gonna say, yeah, that experience too from going to state. Now that how did that run really ultimately help this program long term as far as what you guys, the vision that you guys have for this program and what you're able to do year in and year out?
Well, absolutely. And something you don't think about, that year 2020 went to state, we got 6 extra weeks of practice for our young guys. They practiced 6 weeks longer than a team that would lose in the first round, for example. So when you get your freshmen and sophomores practicing 6 extra weeks with being coached up, things like that, it's almost half a season. They've had more than other schools who get bounced in the first round. So that was huge. Like I said, we won 3 straight sectionals, so we've gotten more and more practice each year, getting through those first 3 weeks and playing into November. So we take a lot of pride in, hey, we want to win sectionals, sometimes we want to win trophies, but like I keep saying, it's going to be obviously a test this year. It's a test every year. Last year we knocked off Monroe Central in the Mud Bowl, you probably saw.
Yeah.
So hopefully we're hoping for turf for South Adams. It's in the conversation now. But that Mud Bowl, I think, hopefully accelerated that process a little bit. But yeah, so we knocked off the number 2 team last year in sectional. We knocked off number 1 Woodland back in 2016. So we don't shy away from great teams. We enjoy the atmosphere. We enjoy the challenge. I love trying to get creative, and I love my D coordinator hates me, but I love trick plays. I love onside kicks. I love fake punts. I love all different formations. I love taking risks, but I think I played too much Madden growing up.
Well, Coach Fox up here at Columbia City onside kicked it 3 times. Now, he says the third one was not his decision, that the kid kind of took the matters into his own hands. So it sounds like it's a growing trend of a little bit of riverboat gambler in some of the coaches around Northeast Indiana.
We did onside kick on Friday, the second kickoff we scored, went up 8-2 and got the onside kick back, which is huge for momentum. But especially in 1A, when we have a kicker who's good, but we kick off and they get the ball back at the 35, 40-yard line sometimes. Onside kick, if you even don't get it, you're only giving up 10 yards from where it might be anyway. Something else that's kind of random Friday, there were no extra point kicks. Went for 2 every time, both of us, which is kind of strange, unique. But we like I said, I love going for 2. I'm big into analytics. For how dumb I actually am, I love analytics and studying the math part of it. But so I have some different things I've gathered this offseason where if we score first, we're always going to go for 2. And try and get that through a couple of scores, try to get to a 3-score game, 4-score game. So it just depends. But I love going for 2. I love being creative with it. Makes it fun, like I said. It's fun for the kids too.
Well, Coach, we appreciate you jumping on here with us tonight, and good luck this final week of the season, and hopefully you can get some kids healthy, like you said, and then we'll look forward to keeping an eye on you during the playoffs, and who knows, maybe we can get back down there to the burn area for a game in the playoffs this year.
Hey, we'll feed you good if you come down here. Don't you worry. I appreciate all you guys do for sports in Foreign Area, man. Having me on, it's a big deal for me to be on here with you guys. So really appreciate all you guys do. Yeah,
thank you so much, Coach. Good luck. That was Grant Moser, the head football coach of the South Adams Starfires, 6-2 on the year, and again, he's probably one of the most, I call, innovative coaches around the Northeast Indiana area. There's a lot of guys that are starting to get in, and he alluded to it a little bit. The analytical side of the game and making determinations. Do you go for it here rather than just, okay, it's 4th down, punt, team on? And I know that's become a bigger part, not just in the NFL and the college ranks, but now it's trickling down into the high school ranks.
Yeah, well, and I think on top of it, I mean, everything is so more readily available at your fingertips. I mean, even in the last 10 years of just covering high school football, going from, the fax machine on Friday nights of people sending in your stats to email to now it's like you can go on Max Preps, there's Digital Scout, there's Huddle, and really it becomes not only a place for the analytics, but also the recruiting aspect and the way to look at film of other teams. And really just, the technological advances have really helped these coaches really hone in on what they want to do with their team through practice, through walkthroughs, through the game on Friday night. through film study. And I think that is, added to the game of football because it's just another layer of what people can do. And really, like Grant Moser said, the trick plays that he likes to come up with, and sometimes maybe it's too much and maybe it's a little bit like Madden, but really that generation of coaches that are in my age range, that's where a lot of that comes from. And just playing the game and the technological age, it allows them to kind of try different things. And for South Adams, playing a team like Southern Wells this Friday night, last place, not scored a whole lot, not very good on defense for Southern Wells, gives an opportunity that maybe some of those wrinkles that they've been working on in practice that they might need to use down the line in the playoffs, they can pull some of those out and just see how they work kind of as a first run.
Yeah, no question. There's a lot of things that have entered the high school game over the last few years that makes it a little bit more interesting now from a spectator's point of view, because you got to be ready at any given time. Onside kicks, fake punts, go for it on 4th and 3 because the analytics say they do. But we're going to segue here into our next segment and bring on our two counterparts. We're going to, we got 4 people on.
There we go.
Better. This is better.
Quad box, as they say in TV. Look at that. This is great stuff here. This is producing at its finest right here.
I feel like I should be pointing like the Brady Bunch.
Yes, for those of you watching the video feed. So for those of you listening to the audio feed, you'll just hear 4 people talking over each other for the next 20 minutes. So there you go. But that's what we do anyway, right? Anyway. Yeah, joining us here, we're going to call this kind of upon further review roundtable. We have Jim Shovelin from 1380 The Fan. You hear him on Saturday mornings on Talking Sports, and of course with us on Friday night on the PSM High School Football Tailgate Show. And Brett Rump, the voice of 1380 The Fan High School Sports on Friday nights, joining us as well. And gentlemen, this is kind of into the regular season. We're heading into week 9. But just, getting ready for sectionals, but just kind of looking back at where some of these main teams are from that perspective as they go. It's some of the better teams in the area. How deep can they make a run? Some of the things that you guys have caught on all season long that really have made this a wonderful football season. And I know we got a lot of football to play, but a lot. And I think for our purposes, we probably have to start obviously with the SAC and the Carroll Chargers. They wrap up another they wrap up an SAC title a week ago. They can wrap it up, undefeated in the SAC this coming week. And Brett, we'll just start with you. I mean, you've seen a number of the Carroll Charger games. I mean, what stands out most to you about this Carroll team as they head into the 6A bracket in the sectional play?
Well, first of all, I don't know if it's easy to identify a weakness. I mean, it's hard to say where's the weakest part of their football team because they're pretty solid everywhere you look. Offensive line, they've done a tremendous job this year. What we've seen with their defensive front with guys like Jones and Pasetsky and what they've been able to do. And then you talk about the offense, quarterback, running the football, being able to throw to multiple receivers, not have one favorite target. You see some of the numbers there. Cam Hirschberger, I would call him kind of the Michael Pittman Jr. of this roster. He's kind of the possession guy. He kind of owns the sideline. He's tremendous at being able to force a defender onto his inside, so he's got leverage to get to the sideline. And he and Jimmy Sullivan had developed a great connection on that. And somehow Hirschberger, he's got the toe tap down. And he, you need a 3rd and 7, he'll find 8 yards downfield and get to the sideline. And we saw that in a number of games. But you can throw to Hafner, you can throw to Hill, you can throw to Rudolph. They've got multiple guys that all seem to complement each other so much. And really the 2 sophomores that kind of completed the cycle for that offense with Sullivan at quarterback and Nate Starks at running back. So that's a complete offense. I don't think we have to sit here and talk about the defense because we started the season knowing about this defense from up front through the linebackers. I think without question, they've got one of the best linebacker cores that you're going to find perhaps in the state. I mean, I think those three guys are terrific. And then what they've got to back it up with Steely back there in the back line of that defense, and Valdez. I mean, they've got everything covered. And number one, they can't beat themselves. Number two, if they can match the physicality, I think they've got a chance to go places. I think the big question for Carroll, if we're looking at a path down, how far can they go? Where Homestead and Northrop are going to be hitting Indianapolis schools right away in the sectional, and get an even bigger group of Indianapolis schools if they can survive the sectional, which is not going to be easy, in the regional, where Carroll is going to be going to that Michiana sectional, and then they'll have a regional that would be basically against a northwest part of the state team, the region, so to speak. So Carroll won't get to that Indianapolis level until semi-state. And so I think that gives them a real good opportunity. But, the travel they're going to encounter. In fact, I was just talking to somebody earlier on social media. Carroll could play a regional. I mean, theoretically, the way that the brackets are set up, Carroll could play a regional against Crown Point and then play a semi-state against Northrop. I mean, 5 miles.
That's strange.
Something doesn't seem right there. But no, I love the completeness of this Carroll team. I always have a certain confidence that maybe this is the most complete team, because usually I feel like there's weaknesses that are going to get exposed by Indianapolis teams. I don't know if this Carroll team has it. But yet I'm always very cautious in my optimism, just because if we learn anything from our past, it's, that sometimes history repeats itself. And so I always am kind of careful there.
Sure. And looking at that sectional, Penn is who Carroll drew first. They're 6-2. Warsaw is 6-2. Elkhart 7-1. So that's not an easy sectional for Carroll either. But I think just the way they've been playing all year long, the teams they do play in the SAC, I think that helps. And Jim, for you, I mean, we've seen Carroll a number of times. Is this a team that, has what it takes to make that deep run, especially against the field like that you see in the 6A?
I think we've got some mic problems with Mr. Shevlin that he's trying to adjust right now because of something that he was trying to work on. So he's trying to get it connected back up for us.
Okay.
So, one thing too, I was going to point out with, we talked about Carroll and you just alluded to the defense. I think we both sat around and thought, man, if they can get production out of offense, irregardless who's the quarterback, they could be dangerous. Then all of a sudden it's like they struck gold with Jimmy Sutherland. And now as an offense, they are so dangerous as an offensive team. So it's one of those things that they've done a good job of taking care of the football. They've got a defense that's done a good job of taking away the football. So they've got a lot of things in their columns that you kind of check off, Brett, like you said, is this a team that can really do some things, even in a tough sectional that they're in, because you got Penn, you got Warsaw, you got Elkhart, who had a merge with Elkhart Central, and they've got talent. And so now they're going to jump into an area that they may not be too familiar with.
And they'll have to do it getting off a bus after being on a bus ride for 2 hours that they're not used to. And that's one thing we'll have with the schedule next year is all the SAC schools are trying to schedule 2-hour bus rides. So when they get into the postseason, they're used to taking them and used to the game prep after being on a bus for 2 hours. But, I honestly think it all comes down to the offensive line.
Well, let's try Mr. Shevlin here. Can you hear us, and can we hear you?
I don't think so.
You know, I know a lot of people that probably are going to want you guys to produce Saturday morning show. You're doing a great, you're doing a great
I
job.
said the P word, produce, and look, and now we don't have. We're having audio issues with Jim. But
this is the first time that we've had more than one person on at a time. So
yeah.
I tell you, I guess the next team that, in the Summit Athletic Conference, started out, a little bit shaky, was kind of, I guess you could call maybe trying to find their identity offensively, if you could really believe that or not. But Snyder was one of those teams that at the first look at them this year, there was a little bit of kind of a disarray offensively, with, Hopper, who was a quarterback that was returning. They've got plenty of talented receivers and then a stable of running backs. But yet through that, only after that first game, I think everybody kind of panicked a little bit with them.
Well, Snyder, had 20 points in each of the first two games or something like that. And they escaped a win over Northside and then lost to Carroll. And then I guess they figured it out, Shannon. And I guess that's what good coaching does. They address where their weaknesses are. And as you go from week 1 to week 2, week 2 to week 3, you hope to make some improvements. And then Snyder went on that run, 5 straight weeks, scoring 42 or more, and then even a 28-0 win over Bishop Dwenger last Friday. So I don't think I have any problems with how Snyder has responded. I mean, weeks 1 and weeks 2, those first 2 games, that's way back in the rearview mirror. What you want, every coach will tell you this before the season starts, is our goal is to be playing our best football in week 10. And we'll see how they play Friday, but it's hard to argue that Snyder's not playing their best football. You only hope they didn't peak mid-season because, man, they've played terrific in weeks 3 through 7. I mean, they were just dominant. And so I really like Snyder, and I like Snyder a lot because of the draw they've got. And when I look at the teams they're going to face and where they're going to face them, I think Snyder, the biggest challenge they might have is getting out of the sectional. You're going to have the rematch against Dwenger. Then you're probably going to play Northside. You know what that game's going to be with the Legends wanting some revenge. So, for Snyder, it might be tougher just getting out of the sectional than maybe the regional and semi-state matchups. Because, again, Snyder is a complete football team, a defense that flies around. Maybe not this big physical team like we've seen at Snyder in the past, because we've seen a lot of really big linemen and guys up front in that defensive front. One of them plays at Purdue right now, Lawrence Johnson. But we've seen some of those really big guys. This team's a little different, a little more athletic, a little quicker, but they've learned how to use their speeds, how to shoot gaps, how to play off each other. And right now, they're offensively and defensively, they really seem to be clicking.
Yeah, if you look at, stats to date and this was up until this past game against Dwenger, so it was only 7 games. Luke Hoppert right now is averaging about 121 yards a game, completing about 65% of his passes, which is pretty good considering the struggle they had early on. Then you've got Buchanan, 472 yards, Level, 396. So there's the 1-2 punch that they've developed at running back. And then you can't forget about Juarez and Billingsley on the outside, and Finks, because, Juarez has got 429, 169 per game reception yards for Billingsley, and Finks at 106. So like you said, they found themselves offensively, I think, a little bit by just, like you said, good coaching does that. Coach Tippmann, 2 years ago, we were talking about their corners and their safeties, and they were getting beat so badly on the deep ball. And as the season went on, they finally got that corrected, and it just has carried on since, to the point where their offense and defense, I think, is sinking right now, and they got a good kicking game. So again, they're kind of starting to check those boxes as well.
Well, Griff, the one thing about Snyder too, you have to remember, they started the season, they lost a coach from their staff that became the head coach at Northrop. And you know what it's like, regardless of the responsibilities that he had with Snyder. But you know what it's like because coaches become very cohesive. They all get comfortable in their roles and they all work off one another. And this is a really good football staff, and it operates like a well-oiled machine under head coach Kurt Tippmann. And you take somebody that's been there as long as Coach Bowen, and all of a sudden you've got to replace him and figure out who's picking up those responsibilities and how do we communicate certain things. And that's why you may have seen the growing pains with this offense, because I don't think it was personnel. It may have been just the staff getting comfortable with everybody's roles. And, if somebody sees something, who do they tell? And how does that get communicated to whoever's calling plays, that type of thing.
Well, and then if you look at kind of the surprise team of the year, I guess that you'd kind of have to put Homestead in that category, just from the standpoint they haven't had 4 losses, I think, was it 96, 97? It's been a while. I'm not precise on the year. And then they draw Hamilton Southeastern in the first round of sectional. And then, of course, as we were doing our game Friday night, and we were done pretty quick because of the type of game it was, there was a shootout kind of game against Wayne that was who had the ball last. And fortunately for Homestead, they had the ball last.
You had to feel like that experience they had a couple of weeks ago against Northside was maybe what made the difference at the end of that game, because they weren't rattled at all, giving up points and giving Wayne the lead, because they had great confidence that they could come right back, because they had done it back and forth against Northside in a shootout type game that was very similar. Only Homestead ended up losing that on a 2-point conversion. This time, Wayne makes the 2-point conversion, but leaves time on the clock. And so Homestead down by a point, they've got some time to move the football, and credit to Peyton Slavin. He's been kind of up and down this year, but man, when the game was on the line, he delivered like Matt Ryan. And that's what we've seen pretty much from Ryan. It's like, well, maybe a 50-50 guy during the course of a game, but man, you want those gamers when when you send the offense out there and you need a score late and you got a minute to do it, you got to count on your quarterback to deliver. And Slavin showed something in that late drive to get the victory over Wayne. But you're right, Shannon. Hamilton Southeastern is not exactly the team you want to see come up, especially when you have to go there and take a road trip down to Hamilton Southeastern.
Yeah. And you're right about Peyton Slavin. He did what a senior quarterback is kind of expected to do in that offense. He took he took charge of the game and led him on to victory.
Yeah. And Brett, looking at the NE8, I mean, we got 2 teams at the top undefeated coming in this Friday, the last regular season, playing for the winner takes all NE8 championship. Norwell, Columbia City, 2 teams that their offenses look great all year, their defenses look great all year. Just kind of your overall thoughts, kind of first impressions heading into the Friday night's game with those 2 teams, and really how that can help them go later on in their respective sectional plays. Norwell in 3A, Columbia City in 4A.
Well, this will be interesting because, yes, you have the conference championship on the line, but every team, if you look at that list, every team that is below Columbia City has a loss where they've been virtually and realistically humbled greatly by Norwell. So they've had to respond during the course of a regular season to a real butt whooping, basically. And so when you look at this, all of those teams had a chance to respond with regular season games on their schedule. Columbia City goes into Norwell. I don't know if Columbia City can beat them. If they do, they're going to be going into the tournament on a tremendous emotional high. Sometimes that's not the best thing, because all of a sudden it's like you've done something, you've accomplished something you haven't done before, and it's all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, we knocked off Norwell, and then all of a sudden it's like you got to come back and play a game a week later that actually means something. But I'm just so impressed with Norwell, man. It is like business as usual for them. Every week they are so steady. We see the exact same team. It doesn't matter what the other team does to try to take stuff away. Norwell still executes and still moves the football. They can run it. If they have to, they'll throw it over the top. They'll take chances deep. They're not afraid of Leighton Bailey throwing the football, but they really know what their strength is, and they run it. And they run it, and they run it. And, man, are they good at doing it. And, we had a chance to see a little more of Colbert, the backup running back this week, and it's hard to tell who's back there, if it's Graft or if it's Colbert, because they're both so good with the vision and the cuts off blocks. Tremendous team. And to me, Norwell has the second best chance in our area to get down to state. Okay. I don't see a team that Norwell would play that I wouldn't pick Norwell to beat. And
Right.
so I've got them as the second best odds on favorite to get there. Columbia City, I want to see them in person. I still, I don't want to say I doubt, but to come from where they've come and to be where they're at, it's just, to me, it's a shocking position to be in. I mean, every time we kind of think, well, they're not going to get through the end of their season schedule. What do? They almost have gotten through the end of the season schedule. So every week we build maybe a little more confidence that, hey, this team might be legit. And everybody else, we could kind of tell when they ran into Norwell, it's like, man, they're a good football team, but they are nowhere near the class of Norwell. And that's what Columbia City is going to have to face. They're going to have to do it, though, in the last week of the season.
Certainly.
Yeah, let me ask you this. Have you made the decision on the game of the week this week? Because inquiring minds are going to want to know, because it's Wednesday night and they need to make some plans. Now, I'm sure you'll update them on the Sports Rush this week, but just in case you would forget to say something on Monday or Tuesday, can we make an announcement where we're going this week?
It is to the Courtyard we go. We are heading to the game. The Columbia City Eagles, Norwell Knights. I tell you, we've been to Norwell before. What a great atmosphere. So welcoming. We absolutely love the people at Norwell. Kelby, the athletic director, really goes over and above to take care of us and help us with our broadcast, our setup, and just we're looking forward to it. What a great way to end the regular season, down with the people of, and I never know, should I say it's the people of Uniondale or should I say it's the people of Ossian? I mean, it's kind of all one and the same, isn't it? When you go, because we talk about it being a community atmosphere. I just don't know what community I'm supposed to mention when I mention Norwell.
I think Ossian and Uniondale both kind of sum it up around there. But you're right. It's a great atmosphere for a high school football game. I would say both towns, whether it's Ossian or Uniondale, if you're not haven't gotten your groceries or gas by 6, you're probably not going to get them until the next morning, because they're probably all going to be at the game. That's going to be the key component. And I know Duke will be looking forward to the pregame festivities, because the last time we were there, he had a pretty good spread of food delivered to him.
I tell you, the tailgating, we talk about it, and that's a great part of all of this, is wherever you go, the different people, the different food that they have, and the different atmosphere, and it's great. And what's really nice about Norwell was that they had it right next to our broadcast location. So literally, like during the commercial break, I could sneak a hot dog or something like that. It was wonderful.
You must look hungry. My problem is they look at me and they think that guy's well fed. He doesn't need any food. So you must just look like that poor little fella needs a burger.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Hey, one more thing here about Columbia City, and then we'll kind of move on, because I could sit here and talk all night, but we only have an hour. So their offense this year, they've changed their philosophy. They've kind of gone to this run and shoot more concept, flex bone type of deal. And I think that's where they're generating a lot of their offense, with Gorey at the running back and then being able to throw it to Stratton Fuller. So that's going to be an interesting matchup for Norwell, because they're going to get stretched not only horizontally, but vertically. So they're going to see a team that's going to use all the field. And it'll be an interesting matchup, and whether CC can hold in up front, because they're just as powerful as Carroll is in their front 6.
Here's my quick observation on Columbia City, and I want to get your input, Shannon. When they had Greg Bolt, everything was built around Greg Bolt. Their identity was that they were going to be a passing team, primarily a pocket passing team. I feel like this team was kind of built almost from the outside in, and almost the quarterback was the last piece. Now, it doesn't mean he's got the least significant role, but it's an offense where you say, okay, we've got this at receiver. This is what we want to utilize here in our passing game, and we'll work our way back to how do we establish our running game. And it seems almost that before it was quarterback and build around him. Now it's kind of like the entire offense is built from the outside in. And Piper's basically, he's taken on this role. He's executed it almost flawlessly. And I think they make the game easy for him to manage. And I don't mean that he can't make plays, but I think they've made the game easy for him. And he's done a terrific job at avoiding the costly mistakes and making the plays when they need to move chains. And so far it's led them to a 7-1 record. So they're doing something right.
Yeah, no question. And I think with everything that coaches get to work now in the off season makes transitioning from one philosophy to another a lot easier. But I think in the passing game per se, when you're running an offense that's built a little bit more so around the running game, the play action pass, throwing it deep to a Stratton Fuller, who's a strapping, I think he's about 6'3", that can run. Now you threaten that vertical concept that also gets the defensive coaches nervous, is that their safeties all of a sudden put their nose up in the line of scrimmage and it's going over their heads. So I think that's helped them immensely be in the position that they are come this Friday night, because like you said, last year, while Bolt was a tremendous quarterback in terms of, mechanics and things like that, it never really jived like they needed it to when they got to that bigger competition. And, when they started playing the Leos and East Nobles and, that type of stuff, it just wasn't, they weren't built for that. So I give Coach Fox some credit on that aspect of it, recognizing who he has, what he has, and then formulating a team around it.
Well, and he set up what obviously is a huge game in our area to get a week 9 matchup that puts two conference unbeatens against each other to decide a conference championship. I mean, I don't know the last time we had this exact scenario where the two teams playing each other were both unbeaten in the conference and the winner was going to claim the title. I know the last I remember, and I know Dude is our historian, he'll probably come up with this, but the last that I remember was Adams, I believe it was Adams Central and Woodland played a final week game that I think the conference title in the ACAC was on the line. But that's the last time I think I can remember. And that was probably like 5 years ago. That was back in the when Woodland, Sherwood Haydock had the state championship team. And they were playing that final week, and I think had a couple of 2-point conversions. It's like they had some great games there in week 9, but that's kind of what we expect this week. Everything on the line, should be a terrific game, great atmosphere. And I'll tell you this, I think a lot of Columbia City will be in Uniondale and following this team. So it's not just a great atmosphere on one sideline, it'll be a great atmosphere on both sidelines.
Yeah, and looking at that, you mentioned it, with Woodland and Adams Central, I think you hit the nail on the head. 2017 week 9 regular season, a 30-21 final. Both teams were undefeated heading into that regular season game. South Adams wins that, and then loses this, or I'm sorry, Adams Central wins that game over Woodland, loses to Southwood in the sectional championship, and then Woodland goes on to the state finals that year. So,
and check the year before, dude. I think the year before it might have come down to a stuffed 2-point conversion try.
16 was at Woodland. It was a 28-16 finish that Woodland won.
Okay, then I got
15. 15 was the 21-20 finish in Monroe
Yep.
at the regular season. So, and that was a team that Adams Central made it to regional that year. And in 2015, if I scroll back real quick, that was a year that Woodland made it to semi-state. So, and it goes to show what we talked about with the ACAC is that they can make deep runs, and it's not necessarily the ACAC champion that does it either.
No, you look at
and
this,
it could be,
year.
But
look, you just had South Adams coach Grant Moser on. Okay, and I'm not going to discount that South Adams could beat Adams Central because they're not going to be intimidated by a number 1 ranking. They're not going to be intimidated that they lost the first time they met. South Adams is going to figure out what do we need to do to beat these guys, and they're going to go at it. And that if everything goes according to chalk, we'll see that game in week 2 of the sectionals. But no, I'll be honest. I do have Adams Central. I gave everybody a score as far as a score on a 1 to 10 scale of my confidence meter that I have that they can make it to Indy. And I've got Adams Central at 9.5. I've got Norwell at 8.5. I've got Snyder at 7.5. I believe, Snyder at 7.5. And I've got Lures. I think Lures is going to make noise in 2A.
Mm-hmm.
I think, we always overlook them in the SAC because they're a middle of the pack team. They struggle with 6A programs. Everybody they're going to face in a 2A tournament would struggle with the schedule Lures has. If you gave Lures an all 2A and 3A schedule, this team right now would be a 7-1 or an 8-0 team.
Oh yeah.
That's how good they are.
Yeah.
And so can they win 6 games in a row and claim a state championship? I'm not going to count them out. I think they can win 5 in a row and get there.
Last thing here on the ACC, and then we'll jump into this week's schedule. Surprise team for me has to be Heritage, and the job that Casey Kolkman has done building that program now into a team that look out down the road for them because they've quietly just gone about their business. Kolkman, when I talked to him in the summer for the media day, boy, he had a quiet confidence around him. And he had that look that he knew he had a pretty good ball club. So hats off to Casey Kolkman and what the Heritage Patriots have done thus far this season.
Well, some would say Heritage is similar to like Nebraska in college football. It's had some great football teams. We remember some really dominant football teams through the years out at Heritage, and then some hard times, some ups, downs, and then some downs. And, I think right now when he took over, I think I said, give him 4 or 5 years, that program's going to get right back to where it is because the people out there, love football, but they had lost an identity. He's gotten the support back in the community. He's got kids wanting to come out and play football. And I guess I'm not surprised yet. I almost expected this, Shannon, to be honest with you. I had that much confidence in what Casey was going to do. I just didn't know how quick it was going to happen.
Yeah, I thought he was a year away, but I think the only bad thing
would be my surprise team if we talk to Eric. Sure. I know we don't get out in the NECC much, but I didn't see this coming. 2-win team a year ago. I think they won 2 games last year. Right. And man, how about their turnaround? Tyler Call, he's been terrific. Tagliaferri, he's done terrific. But we did not see this coming. We didn't project Angola to be what they've been this year. And you look at the couple of losses they've gotten, they're against really good teams. So to me, a team that kind of came out of nowhere after, they had that undefeated team, and then they kind of really hit hard times. And all of a sudden this year, boom, they're right back. And we'll find out because that's going to be a tough 4A sectional.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know who to pick. Wayne could be the team that could surprise people. You've got Leo, and what's Leo going to do when they take on all 4A competition? And does it even the scale for an East Noble? And I don't think it's a dominant sectional, but I think it's a sectional that's got a lot of opportunities for a number of teams. Columbia City might be the favorite.
Yeah, well, they'll tune in next week because that's when we're going to do our tourney preview, so to speak, kind of go through all the different sectionals and talk a little bit more in depth about that. And for next time we come back here, because it'll be season end. We'll be at the season end and we'll be ready for the tourney. But now this week in the Summit Athletic Conference, there's really not a lot of, I would call, big time games. The Carroll at Wayne, I think you always talk about, how does Carroll, handle Nelson? But I think he's going to have tough sledding like he did against Snyder.
Great test for Carroll, by the way.
Yeah, it is a good test.
A dominant running back just before they go play some of these games, that they're going to see some really good athletes and really good running backs.
And a good test for Bishop Lures, because if they can survive the game against Snyder, because that's going to be a hard-hitting game. But again, it's going to put them into a scenario where, they're going to be tested. They're going to, we talked about this Friday with the Norwell team. Have they faced adversity this year? Not really. Not really. And as a coach, you worry about that, because if they can all of a sudden get punched in the nose, how do they react? When things don't go their way, and all of a sudden, does that put them on their heels? So, I think this will be another good test for Lures. You got Northrop at Bishop DeWanger, Concordia at Northside, and the legends of what the job that they've done this year, and his staff, Coach Johnson, and what they've done with Northside. And there's another team that, hangs around, and all of a sudden we may be talking a little bit more about them in the postseason. But we'll be down, like we talked earlier, down at Norwell at the Courtyard for the Norwell versus the Columbia City Eagles for, I guess we could call it Championship Friday. Why not? Let's call it Championship Friday. 6:00 pregame, the Parkview Sports Medicine kickoff. Then at 7:00, the pregame there at 6:00. Postgame at the Pizza Hut. We'll have us. Which Pizza Hut? Because I'm having trouble with that one.
I don't know. Maybe we'll have to take callers and find out, if you're at Norwell, where do you get your Pizza Hut pizza?
Well, do you go to Bluffton, or do you come back to the
I don't know where to go.
Well, that will be a to be determined. We can that you
tune into the Sports Rush.
Tune in Sports Rush. On the Sports Rush, you can get that information. That'll be very valuable to everyone, I'm sure. Which Pizza Hut will we be at?
We'll have the whole crew down there at the Courtyard, and looking forward to a championship game, because there's nothing like it. End of the season, two of the best teams in the NE8 going at it. Two solid defenses, two solid offenses. It should be a great game. A lot of fun for all of us on Friday night.
Looking forward to it, buddy.
All righty. Well, Brett, thanks for joining us. We'll stay right here. Remember, everybody, to smash like and subscribe to us, especially on Twitter at UFR_SAC. And then, of course, all the podcast platforms. You can be fine. And then at 8:00 on Wednesday nights, right after the Tom Allen Show, on 1380 The Fan, 100.9, you'll get the rebroadcast of this show at 8:00 on 1380 The Fan. And thanks to everyone there for allowing us to be associated with the network and the station there. It really is very gracious of the management there to let us on. But what do you think, dude? I think we've run out of time, because we've talked a lot. We've got three guys that like to talk. So that's one thing.
Yes. And we've got a lot to talk about, because we're 8 weeks into the season now. And so now we don't have to, it's like in our mind, we know what we want to say, instead of, a lot of work. And it's been a great season too. But yeah, I think we're out of time this week. And for Coach Shannon Griffith, I'm Eric Dukevich, better known as Duke. We want to thank Brett Rump for coming on, with Jim Shovlin, who joined us for a little bit, and Grant Moser from South Adams joining us upon further review. Everybody enjoy your game on Friday night, and we'll see you next week for another episode.